A sequel to Pretty Woman has been teased for years, but Richard Gere just revealed the one thing that could finally make it happen, and it's something fans never saw coming. It has been more than 3 decades since Pretty Woman first hit theaters, yet the film still holds a special place in people's hearts. The story of Edward Lewis and Vivian Ward wasn't just another romantic comedy, it became a cultural moment. People loved it for the chemistry, the charm, and the simple joy of watching two characters from completely different worlds slowly fall for each other. Even today, many viewers can picture scenes like the shopping makeover, the opera night, and the iconic moment when Edward climbs the fire escape at the end. These scenes are replayed online thousands of times, proving that the movie never really left us. Richard Gere, who played the calm, wealthy businessman Edward, was already a well-respected actor at the time, but his role in Pretty Woman made him an international star. On the other side was Julia Roberts, whose smile and energy lit up the screen. Together, they created a pairing that people still talk about. Many romantic comedies have tried to copy the feeling of Pretty Woman, but none have matched its staying power. The movie is still watched on streaming platforms, still quoted in conversations, and still called one of the greatest romantic comedies of all time. Because of this lasting love, fans have spent years asking one question: will there ever be a Pretty Woman 2? Every time Richard Gere or Julia Roberts appears in an interview, that question pops up again. People want to see where the characters ended up. They want to know if Edward and Vivian stayed together, what their life looks like now, and how their relationship grew beyond the fairy tale ending. The idea of seeing them again, older, wiser, and facing a new chapter, excites longtime fans and younger audiences who discovered the film later. But the truth is, talk of a sequel has always been uncertain. Hollywood loves sequels, but Richard Gere never seemed interested. He often avoids returning to older roles, especially if he feels the story has already been told in a complete way. To him, Pretty Woman wasn't something to redo or stretch out. It was a moment in time, a story with a beginning, a middle, and a perfect fairy tale ending. Julia Roberts also once said that the characters might not work the same way in a modern setting. So for years, the idea of a sequel lived only in fan theories and wishful thinking. Then something unusual happened. In a recent conversation, Richard Gere finally opened up in a way he rarely does. For the first time, he didn't completely shut down the idea of a sequel. Instead, he talked about what it would take for him to return. He didn't give a long list of conditions. He didn't talk about money or timing or Hollywood business. He talked about one single requirement, something so personal and meaningful to him that it immediately changed the way fans looked at the possibility of a second film. This one requirement has now become the center of discussions among movie lovers. Because if that condition were met, a sequel might not just be possible, it might actually happen. And that's why Gere's comments caused such a stir. Even though he has avoided sequels for most of his career, this moment showed that he is not completely closed off to the idea. Instead, he's waiting for something specific, something that feels right, something that respects the original film, and something that stays true to the characters that fans have adored for more than 30 years. Before we reveal his requirement, it's important to understand why his words matter so much. Hollywood is full of remakes and reboots, but Pretty Woman is different. It's a film with emotional weight. It's a story tied to the careers of two major stars. And most importantly, it's a movie fans feel protective of. No one wants a sequel that ruins the original. Richard Gere seems to understand that better than anyone else. That's why his one requirement holds so much power. In the next section, we'll break down exactly what he said and why it could change everything for fans who have been waiting for Pretty Woman 2. For many years, Richard Gere avoided talking about a possible sequel. Whenever interviewers brought up Pretty Woman 2, he usually smiled politely and changed the subject. Fans took this as a clear sign that he was done with Edward Lewis forever. But recently, something different happened. During a relaxed conversation, Gere was asked yet again if he would ever return for a sequel. Instead of brushing off the question, he paused, thought for a moment, and then gave an answer that surprised everyone. He said he would consider coming back only if one important thing was in place. That moment instantly caught the attention of fans, reporters, and film bloggers. Gere is known for being thoughtful with his words. He doesn't make bold statements just for attention. and he doesn't play with fans' emotions. So when he decided to open up, people knew it meant something deeper. It wasn't just a casual comment, it was a real sincere hint that the door to a sequel had not been fully closed. The way he said it added even more weight. Gere didn't speak with excitement or hype. Instead, he sounded calm and honest, like someone who has spent years thinking about what the story meant to him. He explained that he doesn't want to revisit a character unless there is a good reason. For him, returning to Edward Lewis wouldn't be about nostalgia or fan service. It would have to feel meaningful, especially because Pretty Woman has become more than just a movie. It has become a beloved part of pop culture. The interviewer's reaction said it all. They immediately leaned in, surprised and curious. Gere was giving a rare look into his feelings about the film, and his tone didn't sound like a firm no. Instead, it sounded like a quiet maybe, but only under the right conditions. That shift in tone is what got fans talking. For someone as selective as Gere, even a small hint is a big deal. After that interview clip circulated online, social media reacted instantly. Fans started sharing theories about his requirement. Some people guessed it might be about the script. Others believed it was connected to Julia Roberts. A few even thought it had something to do with the original director, Gary Marshall, who passed away in 2016 and had a strong impact on the making of the film. But Gere kept things mysterious. He didn't give details yet. He just hinted that there was one thing that could change his decision. Entertainment reporters picked up the story quickly. Headlines appeared on film blogs and celebrity news pages. Some articles celebrated his openness, while others tried to predict what his requirement might be. Many writers agreed that Gere's comments didn't sound like a random answer. They felt more like a carefully considered thought, the kind of thought an actor has when a movie still means something personal to him. This sudden interest reminded people how powerful Pretty Woman still is. Even after so many years, fans want more. They want to revisit the world, even if just for one more chapter. The idea of seeing Edward and Vivian again brings a sense of nostalgia and excitement. Gere's comment didn't promise anything, but it gave people something they hadn't had before. Hope. That hope grew even stronger when fans realized that Gere didn't speak negatively about the idea of a sequel. He didn't say it was impossible. He didn't say he wasn't interested. Instead, he said it depended on one key thing, and that was enough to spark a wave of conversation across the internet. People began debating what kind of sequel could work in today's world, especially since so much time has passed since the first film. Would the characters still feel the same? Would the romance still make sense? Could a sequel honor the original without ruining what made it special? These are the same questions Gere has been thinking about for years, and that's exactly why his recent revelation matters. He understands that Pretty Woman is not just another movie. It's a story that shaped his career and touched millions of people. So when he says he has one requirement, it means he's protecting that legacy. He wants any sequel to respect the characters, the story, and the emotional connection fans have to the film. When Richard Gere finally revealed the one thing he would need before agreeing to a Pretty Woman sequel, it wasn't about money, fame, or even Hollywood pressure. Instead, his requirement came from a place of honesty and deep respect for the original movie. Gere said that he would only return for Pretty Woman 2 if the story was truly meaningful, a story that honors the characters and shows real emotional growth, not just a sequel made to please the box office. He explained that the original film worked because it had heart. It wasn't just a light romantic comedy. It was a story about two lonely people who ended up saving each other. Edward and Vivian weren't perfect. They were flawed, scared, and unsure about life. But together, they found something real. Gere said that if a sequel ever happened, it would need to carry that same emotional truth. The characters would have to feel authentic, not forced into a new storyline just because fans want nostalgia. According to Gere, he would only say yes if the script had the same spirit as the original. This means the story would have to explore who Edward and Vivian are today. What did their happy ending lead to? Did they face struggles? Did they grow together or grow apart? Gere emphasized that it would have to make sense, not only for the audience but for the characters themselves. He doesn't want a sequel that feels like a copied version of the first movie. He wants something deeper, something that respects the journey Edward and Vivian went through. This requirement may sound simple, But in Hollywood, it is a big deal. Many studios love making sequels just because the original was successful. But Gere made it clear that he wouldn't agree to a sequel that exists only to cash in on the movie's legendary status. He wants a sequel that feels like a natural continuation of the story, one that explores how two very different people built a life together after the fairy tale moment ended. He wants emotional honesty, not another glamorous romantic fantasy with no real meaning. Gere also mentioned something else that made fans smile. He said the story would need to work for both him and Julia Roberts. Although he didn't say her name directly, he hinted that the character's connection was the heart of the movie. Without that connection, he believes a sequel simply wouldn't work. That small detail made fans wonder if his requirement also includes having Roberts on board. After all, without Vivian Ward, there is no Pretty Woman. Their chemistry wasn't something that could be replaced or recreated with another actress. Gere didn't demand the original director, the same setting or the same style. What he wanted was something much more important: emotional truth. He wants a story that feels honest about who Edward and Vivian would be after all these years. This means acknowledging the challenges of long-term relationships, the changes people go through over decades, and the realities of aging and growth. Gere believes a sequel should not pretend the characters are the same as they were in 1990. Instead, it should show how they matured and what their lives look like now. This requirement immediately changed the tone of the conversation online. Instead of dreaming about a flashy Hollywood-style sequel, fans began imagining a more realistic and heartfelt follow-up. A story about love that lasted, or maybe love that needed to be rebuilt. Something emotional, reflective, and true to life. Gere's requirement shifted the focus away from glamour and toward depth. The same depth that made the first movie unforgettable. Many people praised Gere for this stance. They said it showed how much he cares about the film's legacy. Instead of treating Pretty Woman like a brand, he treats it like a story that deserves to be protected. For him, the emotional value is more important than the financial value. This is rare in today's film industry, and it's one of the reasons his comments made such an impact. Because of this requirement, some fans now believe that a sequel could actually be better than expected, if the right writer and director took on the project. Others say that Gere's condition makes a sequel unlikely because Hollywood doesn't always prioritize heartfelt storytelling. But whether it happens or not, Gere's message was clear. He will only return if the story is strong enough, authentic enough, and emotional enough to honor the world that Pretty Woman created. In the next section, we'll explore why creating such a sequel is so complicated and why meeting Gere's requirement may be harder than fans think. Even though Richard Gere's requirement sounds clear and heartfelt, creating a sequel that meets that standard is not easy. In fact, it may be one of the biggest challenges in modern Hollywood. The problem isn't just writing a script or bringing the cast together. It's about protecting a film that has become a symbol of romance for millions of people. Pretty Woman isn't just a movie. It's a memory, a feeling, a moment in time that audiences still revisit when they want comfort, laughter, or a reminder of what unexpected love can look like. One of the main difficulties is that the original movie worked because it captured a unique kind of magic. The chemistry between Richard Gere and Julia Roberts wasn't something that could be planned or predicted. It just happened. It was natural and effortless. Trying to recreate that same spark decades later could be risky. Fans have very strong emotional connections to Edward and Vivian. If a sequel changes too much, audiences might feel disappointed. But if it stays too similar, it could feel unnecessary. This balance is incredibly hard to get right. Another challenge comes from the fact that both Gere and Roberts have evolved as actors. They've taken on new roles, lived through new experiences, and grown as people. Their characters would also need to reflect those changes. Edward and Vivian cannot return as the same young couple who ended Pretty Woman with a dramatic fire escape scene. Time has passed, life has happened. Showing these characters as older, wiser adults could be powerful, but only if done with honesty. A poorly written sequel could make them feel like strangers, or worse, like copies of their former selves. Hollywood adds another layer of complication. Studios often push for sequels because they know the name alone will bring in money. But Gere made it clear that he won't return just to produce a big box office hit. He wants a story with meaning. The challenge is finding a studio willing to prioritize emotion over profit. Many sequels fail because they focus on nostalgia rather than storytelling. Gere's requirement demands the opposite, a story first, nostalgia second. And that kind of approach is rare today. There's also the legacy of Gary Marshall, the beloved director of the original film. He played a huge role in creating the warm, joyful tone of Pretty Woman. His passing in 2016 left a gap that cannot be filled easily. Any sequel would need a director capable of honoring his style while still creating something fresh. That's a difficult balance. Fans believe Marshall understood the heart of the movie better than anyone else. Without him, there's a real fear that a sequel might lose the charm and sincerity that made the original so special. Another issue is the pressure of expectations. Fans have spent years imagining what a sequel could look like. Some picture Edward and Vivian married with a family. Others imagine them running a business together. Some expect drama, some want pure romance, and others want a realistic take on long-term relationships. With so many different hopes, it becomes nearly impossible to satisfy everyone. A single storyline could disappoint large groups of fans, and the creators know this. That pressure makes the idea of writing a sequel even more intimidating. On top of that, both Gere and Roberts are selective about their roles. They don't choose projects quickly or easily. They think deeply about the meaning of every story they tell. Julia Roberts has said before that rom-coms are hard to make today because the tone is different, and the genre isn't the same as it was in the 1990s. Modern audiences expect deeper storytelling, more realistic dialogue, and stronger emotional grounding. A Pretty Woman sequel would have to fit into today's world while also staying connected to its 1990 roots. That's a delicate line to walk. There's also the matter of timing. Gere's requirement means that a sequel cannot be rushed. It would need months, maybe years, of development. Writers would have to explore the characters' lives in a genuine way. The story would need to be carefully shaped, tested, and refined until it truly reflects the heart of the original. This kind of slow, thoughtful process doesn't always align with how fast studios want to release new content. The timing would need to work for everyone involved, and that is difficult when dealing with A-list actors and major film companies. All of these complications make one thing clear. Creating Pretty Woman 2 is not impossible, but it is extremely challenging. It requires a perfect combination of story, tone, casting, emotion, and timing. One wrong choice could damage the legacy of the original film, and Richard Gere seems to understand that better than anyone. That's why his requirement is so important. He knows a sequel should only exist if it can truly honor the love story that fans have cherished for more than 30 years. In the next section, we will look at how fans reacted to Gere's comments and what industry insiders are saying about whether his requirement could ever realistically be met.